Hey y'all, and welcome to SkyUI Scripting. On this episode, I'm going to teach you how you can create lovely mod configuration menus with pages and layouts. Now, this is my personal favorite episode in the MCM series, and that's for two reasons. One, I'm just really passionate about helping folks make really beautiful, professional looking, polished mod configuration menus that users love and adore, or they don't love and adore, they just take them for granted because they work so well. The second reason is because it's just so easy to write horrific mod configuration menu code, and it's not people's faults. And I don't even mean what renders on the screen for the player, I just mean the code. So there's really two reasons for that, and I'll give you a demonstration. So here I am, I'm down here. Here's just a kind of basic set of mod configuration menu. I've ripped out everything from a previous episode. Every mod configuration is going to have options and pages. So the options will either have states if they're stateful, or they'll have a ton of these little integers, one for each option, and then they'll be handled in every event handler. And what they do is, I'll go big for this, these little options, every time you add one, it makes the page go down and it makes it go longer. The page gets longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. There's nothing really you can do about that. More options means longer page, means harder to navigate. Now, if you add pages and extra pages, take that into consideration. If you've got 10 widgets on every page and you add 10 pages, then you've got a 10 times longer file. Or do you? So one of the things we're going to focus on is ripping out all of the individual pages into their own files. It will so help you maintain things. We're going to rip out not only pages into their own files, but then we're going to make sure that for the left column and for the right column, which are the two things you get in SkyUI mod configuration menus, we separate out your code for the left column and the right column, so it's so much easier to follow and work on. So here's some notes in case you want to take a screenshot. Here's what I'm going to go through. These are like my notes for the episode. So the most important things for me are making sure you have a script per page, separate functions for the left and right column. We're going to show you how to make just really nice use of header options, empty options, and some options have text on the left and text on the right. And just choosing which of those looks a lot better. Always provide highlight text like the set info text that we saw in the option episode for every option, and translate all the things. MCM menus are really easy to translate, so you may as well set them up for translation early. So we're going to start off writing a one-pager, and when we use one-pagers, I recommend using the state option. So that's what we're going to start with, so I can just teach you how to do left column, right column, and then we'll make another page, and then we'll rip the page out. How does that sound? Sound good? Let's do it. So let me kind of delete everything I have here. My MCM happens to be called cool mod underscore MCM. I added an underscore. You don't need that. You should have whatever you have from the cool mod that you've been working on so far is good. If you don't have something from the cool mod, then I'm sorry, the past 3-4 minutes have maybe been a little bit confusing. You should go back to episode 1 in the mod configuration menu series at skyrimscripting.com and get set up with your own mod configuration menu. It goes over getting over some of the hurdles in getting SkyUI MCM menus set up for the first time. But for those of us who have the cool mod, we're going to work on the cool mod. So go ahead, open up Creation Kit. Open up the quest, the cool mod quest, and then head on over to the scripts tab and open up the cool mod MCM, right click edit source. That's where we're going to be coding. We're also going to make some additional pages, and I can show you how to do that in Creation Kit. We've done that in some other episodes. Maybe I'll show you when we do it, when we focus on pages. But let's first do a left column and a right column. So what do we want? 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 We got a cool mod here. Right now, we had in the previous episode just one page called something like settings. So if I have this, just cool mod, settings, nothing in the on-page reset where we render the page, this is what it's going to look like in Skyrim. Here we are, we've got our cool mod. We can just go in there. There's nothing that renders on the home page. That's when the page variable is set equal to empty string. And then for the settings page, there's also nothing there. So let's go ahead and add some stuff. Let's just add some widgets to the settings page. First we'll add them and then we'll lay them out into different columns. So here we are. What we would normally do is check which page we're on. So if we say if the page equals nothing, then you're on the home page, and we'll make that do something before end of episode. Else if the page equals settings, then we'll do some setting stuff. Now I could just squish it all in here. I could make a settings function show settings, whatever. And then that way we can have our code kind of in there. Doesn't matter. So let's put some stuff on the screen. I'm just going to show some widgets. We're going to have future episodes on each one of these widgets. I just want to put some in here so that you can see stuff on the screen. We'll add a header option, the header. We'll add an empty option. Let's see what that's like. We'll add a text option. Text options have text, which goes on the left, and a value that goes on the right. So we'll say text, text, value, value. Drop-down menus look kind of similar. They've got text on the left, but then text that shows up for the main text for the drop-down that activates the drop-down. So we'll just say text, value. Anything else I want to show you? I could show you slider, text, and then you have to give it a float by default, and toggle option. We'll make these stateful in a moment. So some toggle true for the Boolean value. Let's see if this compiles. Okay, and I'll open it up in game. We're in game. Let's go to our cool mod. It's got one settings page, and there's a bunch of stuff here. Well, you can tell the storm is brewing in Skyrim. We would like this stuff to be kind of top down. Right now it says header, empty option, the text value, the drop down. It goes left to right like this. These things all have little indexes. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's make that go top down. That is really easy to do. Before we render the options, we set the cursor fill mode to top to bottom. So set cursor fill mode. And then there's just a variable on the page called top to bottom, just like that. And we'll look at that in game. Back in game, we got our cool mod. We go to the settings page, and here's all of our stuff. Here's the header. This is what an empty option looks like. It just adds nothing there, so it can be used nicely for spacing. Text, value, value. This is the text option. This is the menu option. This is the slider option. This is the toggle option. So let's add some stuff to the right column, and then we'll make some of these widgets do stuff. To add stuff to the right column, we do something really, really similar to setting that fill position. All we have to do is, let's say we want this stuff to be in the right column, and maybe we'll add a header to it called right column. Right column, and we'll change the header to the left column. This, at cursor fill mode, makes it go top to bottom. Okay, but what we want to do is you put the cursor in a position. There's 128 slots on an MCM menu. There's 64 on each column, and the way it goes is you can put your cursor there and say add option, and it'll add the option there. So it starts at the top left 0, and then it goes to the top right 1. You'll probably never specifically manually put the cursor into a position except to render the right column. So what you're going to do is going to say set the cursor position to 1. That's the top right. Let's see how this looks in game. We got a cool mod. Cool mod. Go to the settings page. Ta-da! The left column, the right column, and some stuff. That's the empty option and the text one. Here's the drop down and the slider and the other widget that we put over there. Wonderful. Let's make some of these do things so that we can see some event handlers. Now what I will do, just to get us kind of prepped and ready for when we make pages, I'm going to take this stuff that renders in the left column right here, and this stuff that renders in the right column. I'm just going to put them in their own little functions. So let's just say functions show settings left column. This will be a lot cleaner when we put it into separate pages, but this will just start to show you how to lay out some things. And if you only have a single page MCM, then you can just call these left column and right column, because you don't care about which pages if you have a single page MCM. And there we go. So what I like to do is I set the cursor fill mode to top to bottom, and then I render the left page column. And then I go ahead and put the cursor where it's supposed to be, and then I render the right column. Cool. If we show that in game, it'll look the same. But let's go ahead and make one of these things do something. We will just do the toggle. And so when you're using single page, I recommend that you use the stateful options. We didn't do that for any of these, but that's okay. All we're going to do for the toggle option is we say add toggle option ST. We went over this in the last episode on options. And then at that point, you have to give it the name of the widget. So we'll just say our toggle option. And then you make a state representing that, and that's where you put all the handlers. What happens when you put your mouse cursor over this toggle? Does it show a little highlighted text? What happens when you click on it? So we say state our toggle option and state, and then we put our little event handlers in here. We'll say event on highlight. Remember, it has the ST, and then we'll do event on select. Cool, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's make it do something. When you highlight it, we'll set the info text, because you're highlighting it, to click this toggle. Then when you click it, we'll say debug message box, you clicked it. Let's make sure this compiles, Control S, and then let's look at it in game. And we're in game, we got our cool mod, we go to our settings page, we got our left column or right column, good on us, and we got some toggle. If you look, it says click this toggle when you hover over it, that's the highlight, and then if we click on it, which is on select, it says you clicked it. Ta-da, how wonderful. What are we gonna do next? What are we gonna do? I want to make another page. We can just call it like settings 2 or something. It doesn't really matter. But before we do that, I'm going to do something to get us a little bit more set up. If you have a single page layout, I recommend that your page just looks like show left column, show right column. This is what I want you to have if you have a single page. So no matter what page they're on, just show the same thing. Call this left column, call this right column. That's really simple. You can actually put this stuff up here, just like that, just like that. If you've got a single page, in your on-page reset, just make sure it's top to bottom, render your left column, put the cursor position at the top right, render your right column. Here's everything encapsulated for what you want in your right column and your left column, and then you can have all of your states down below, make everything stateful. It's going to make your life happier. I'll just show you that this still works, and at this point, it should render on the home page, not just the settings page, because it always renders. We're no longer checking if page equal. We're in game, we got a cool mod. Now if we click on it, it should automatically show everything we render, because it doesn't check to see if the page equals settings or whatever. So we got our page, which is cool. We got our sum toggle. We can go to the settings page, we'll see the same thing. We got our sum toggle, cool. Now, to get us prepared for having multiple pages, here's what I'm going to have you do. If you're using multiple pages, we're not going to use stateful options. If you have one page, use stateful options. They just help organize your code so much. But that's just not how we do things with multiple pages. So here's what we're going to do. Let's convert this stateful text thingamajigger into a non-stateful one. So we'll go like this. So it's on toggle option. And then if you recall from our last episode, we need to store the ID of it somewhere. So we'll just say int OID for option ID, and there's no specific page, so let's just give it the name. Otherwise, I'll do OID underscore page name underscore the option. So let's just do the toggle widget or whatever, toggle widget ID, and then we'll say when we create this toggle option, we'll set that value, and then we no longer use a state. If you remember, instead of on highlight st, we use on option highlight, and we use on option select for these. So let's just make these. We'll say, I'll just convert them for you, so you can see that they're very similar. This is on option highlight, on option select, and we no longer have this st. And these both take the option ID of what is being highlighted, so int option ID of what was clicked. And so in this scenario, you've got these events, and it doesn't matter which widget you click, they all go to the same event. They all go to the same event, so you end up with a bunch of code that looks like this. If option ID equals OID blah, so widget 1, else if it equals widget 2, else if it equals widget 3, we're going to do this. And on select, we'll do the same thing. We'll say if it's the toggle widget, then we'll show the message box. Now let's just make sure that this compiles and check it out in game. It should have the same behavior. Back in game, if we go to our cool mod, we see the same thing we just saw. Should show the highlight text and the clicking works. Great. So now all we've done basically is we switched the it's a truck backing up. It's very nice. I don't know if you can hear the beeping. It's very nice. All we did was switched how we are doing these widgets. Now it's time to make multiple pages. So we've got settings right now. Let's just say that the page number is, there's 2 of them now, and we'll say that pages 1, which is page 2, equals settings 2. There's settings 1 and there's settings 2. And then in our on page reset, we'll do what we typically do. We'll say if the page equals blank, maybe we'll render a home page. Else if the page equals settings 1, we'll do something. Else if it equals settings 2. And if. So what do we want it to do for settings 1 and settings 2? Well, I want these to be in separate scripts. So what I really want to do is something like coolmod mcm underscore settings 1 dot page reset, or I just like to call it render. So we want something like that. So let's hop on over into CK. I'm here in Creation Kit. I haven't even loaded up the cool mod because we don't really need to. We just need this for the gameplay Papyrus Script Manager. I've already searched for cool, so it shows the MCM and a player script, which we may have made in a previous episode, or I just have one. We're going to do right-click new, and this is how we can create some new global scripts. So I'll do cool mod MCM, and then I'm just going to put the name of the page. So let's actually have a home page. We'll call one coolmod underscore MCM home. We don't need to extend anything. You can make it hidden if you want, it doesn't matter. And we can say like this is the home page of the MCM, whatever. Make a new one called coolmod MCM settings 1. You could call it coolmod MCM page underscore settings 1 or settings 1 page, whatever helps keep you organized. This is the settings 1 page, and one more. We'll do settings 2. This is the settings 2 page. Whatever, you don't need that, you don't need the hidden. Now it won't show up until you change this, so just tweak that filter, and now they're there. And now what you can do is you can right click to compile them. You can also right click to open them up in an external editor, and you won't be surprised to know that I'm just going to go ahead and open these up in Visual Studio Code. Unsurprisingly, now they already show up for me. So what we want to do is I want there to be a function called like render or page reset or something like that on each one of these scripts. So we'll start with settings 1. So for settings 1, I'm just going to make a function. Now remember, it has to be global because our script doesn't extend anything. I've got a tutorial in the beginner basics series on functions if you would like a refresher, but they're not scary. Don't worry about it. All we do is we say function. We'll just call it render. It's going to take something, but we'll look at that in a second. It's global, and that allows it to be called. And what we want to do here is we want to actually render the things from the MCM. We want to add our header. We want to do whatever. So to get this working, this should now work. MCM settings 1. Let me save this. Let me save this. Cool, it's no longer red. It knows there's a render function. Now if we go to our settings 1 page and we try to render something, we want to do like add header option. Foo. Well, it's not working. I'm not getting any code completion, and that's because those are all functions that exist on SkyConfig base. We are a random script. We're not a SkyConfig base, but the MCM is. So what can we do? We want to be able to actually say like MCM dot. So we can actually just take our instance of our MCM right here into all of our functions. We'll take it into all of our functions. So we'll say coolmod MCM, just call it MCM, and now the red angriness went away. And now we'll actually need to pass in the MCM. This is the MCM. So how do you pass in the MCM from the MCM? Well, you use something special called self, and you just put self in there, and that will pass along self, which is the MCM, to this function right here. So let's actually give it a shot. If the page is settings 1, we should get a header option called foo. Does that compile? It compiles, so let's take a look. So we're in game, we got our cool mod. Let's click on it and let's go to that settings 1 page. We got foo. Congratulations, we got foo. There's nothing on the other settings page. Let's put everything from our existing settings page that we had that we're working on before into this page. So we're just going to move some stuff over from MCM. So let's just grab everything. Let's start with our left column and our right column. So let's start with those and let's just paste them in here. Now, these functions now need to be global because they're in a global script. So we add global, and now what? Now what do we do? Well, these are all red because again, it doesn't have the MCM. You can't just call add empty option. You need to call that on the MCM. So these will all just take a parameter for the MCM. No biggie. Easy peasy. And then these should all say MCM dot, and then it works. So I'll say MCM dot, and those work. MCM dot, and those work. We'll fix this toggle option in a moment. Let's see this work. And I'm not even going to boot it up in game because we're not calling left column and right column, right? Let's actually call those. So we just call left column and right column. And you'll see that they're red because you need to pass along that MCM. Easy peasy, you just say MCM. And you can already guess at home what's probably going to happen because this is going to go left, right, left, right, left, right because we didn't do this. We needed to set the fill mode MCM.setFillMode to that top to bottom. That's a variable on the MCM, so we say MCM top to bottom. And then same thing to move that cursor. MCM dot cursor position to 1. And now we should have something exactly like we had in the first place, just missing a toggle. We're in game, let's go into our coolmod. Coolmod, let's go to settings 1. Ta-da! We got everything except we're missing a toggle, so let's fix that and add the toggle. Now there's one gotcha with that toggle, which is we need to, when we create it, set this object ID. We need to store it somewhere. We need to store that option, rather, ID. Well, you can't store anything on global scripts. It's just now not how it works. You can store fields and properties on script objects that extend from something. Those are instances of scripts. So we've got this already here. If we tried to, we could try and call it MCM dots. That'd be nice. But we can't reach it because it's not a public property. You just add property and auto. Now we should be golden. I close this and reopen it and see if the redness goes away, because it's angry. And this should work. Give it a moment and hover. There we go. It reads the property just fine. Now when we click on it, nothing's going to happen because we haven't set up that event. What we have here are our option highlights and our option selects. And ironically, this would work, but this puts all of the handling for the options into the main page. That's not what we really want. We want the main page to just be responsible for setting up the pages, and then the pages to have everything else. Just the pages do everything. So what if we had a highlight and select function here? So here's a simple page. We got render, left column, right column. Let's just add select and highlight functions. So I'm going to say function, I'll keep it simple, just on highlight, and it will take the int of the option ID. But because it's global, we're also going to want this MCM menu. Everything here should just take the MCM menu. If anybody's ever programmed Python, this is how Python classes work. You just always have whatever you're working on as the first argument. On select. There's our MCM and int option ID for whatever was selected. Cool. And now we can move this stuff over. Boop. Boop. We'll fix the red in a moment. Boop. Boop. Cool. But now we need to get this option ID, and it's on the MCM. So we say MCM dot. And now we're trying to set the info text, and to do that, that is also a function on the MCM. So we end up with a couple of MCM dots, but we have this really nice clean page that we could copy and paste really easily. Let's actually go ahead and do that right now. I'll copy everything from below here, and I'm just going to paste it into settings 2. Maybe we'll change a thing or two about it. In the left column, we'll just say, this is settings 2. And then in the right column, we'll have a header that says, settings 2 is the coolest. And then we won't do any other options. We'll just not handle any options in on, select, or highlight. And so now we should have a settings 2 page as soon as we tell our main page that it should pass along settings 2 to settings 2, just like so. Cool. Now let's try that out in CK. Skyrim. I forgot to delete some random little character there. Back in game, we got our cool knob. Let's go to settings 1. There we go. We got some toggle. We'll look at that in a second. We got settings 2. We just said settings 2. Nice. So we've got these two nice little template pages that just have left column, right column. Nice and simple, separate files. You can operate on them independently really easily. And they're both short files. So let's go and look at some toggle. If we hover over, nothing happens. And if we click, nothing happens. So let's go and fix that. So click, click, click. That's because all of the events are still handled by the main MCM page. So this on option highlight and on option select, that's still what gets called. It's not calling the settings 1 on highlight and on select. That's our responsibility. So one of the easiest ways we can do this is just call it. We can just say settings 1 dot on highlight. It takes the MCM in addition to the option ID. See, we can see it there. So we just say self option ID. And then we can do the same thing for page 2. Cool deal, cool deal. And then we'll do the same thing for select. It'll probably stop being red if I close and open this. Because Visual Studio is awesome, but sometimes it's slow. Or I could actually just read what it's saying. On highlight cannot be called because it's not a global function. All right, I forgot to make these global. All right. Some of y'all probably saw that and were like, what is she doing? She knows something I don't? Nope, you were right the whole time. All the functions gotta be global. So now, do this so that it's a little bit faster. Now if I hover over this, it should say that it's all happy, and let's try it. In game, here's our cool mod. Click on that and go to settings 1. Let's look to see if the highlight works. The highlight totally works. Boop, boop, and let's click on it, and the click totally works. Now, even though all of that click code that actually set the that actually popped up that message box and everything is in this settings 1 file. So the settings 1 file just has render, left column, right column, and on highlight and on select. Wonderful. It has only things that are related to the settings 1 page. Settings 2 is even shorter because it doesn't have a whole lot right now. It only has things that are relevant to that page. And then this is starting to look pretty good. There's some conditionals here that we can clean up if we want to. So for settings, for settings selection and highlighting, we're just kind of blindly saying, we're calling everyone. We're calling all the pages and saying, calling all pages, if you handle this option, feel free to do it. So I'm just gonna be really, really lazy. I'm going to do the same thing here. So instead of on highlight, it's render. And instead of option ID, it's page. So now we want our renders to check to see if it's on the right page. It's kind of lazy, but totally works. And then the pages are responsible for their names as well. So if the page, which now is being passed in as a second parameter, is equal to settings 1, then we'll render the stuff. Otherwise, we won't render anything because it's not our page. It's someone else's page. We don't care. It's someone else's page. It's not our responsibility. And this adds a couple of conditional checks, but Papyrus is slow, but it's not that slow. I mean, this stuff is fine. So if you wait for that for a moment, I'm going to close and reopen to make the underlines go faster. Because I'm recording a screencast and I want it to be fast. Cool, cool. Things are looking good now. We've still got these. And actually, if you notice, I did settings 1 and this one's wrong. It's settings 1 instead of settings 2. We could be a little bit more bug-free if we asked the pages for their own name. So what I do is I just have function get page name global and function return settings 1. I'm going to use it right here. It needs to return a string. I'm going to use it right here and say just get page name. So if the page that's being attempted to be rendered or whatever is our page, then we'll render it. So let's just add the same thing on settings page 2. We totally love you, settings page 2. We'll say get page name. Awesome. Now we can actually use that from over here too, so we can make those pages responsible for their own names even. So cool mod settings. Just copy and paste it. Get page name and get page name, but that's for settings 2. Sweet, this is looking sweet. This is looking awesome, right? Now what I will do is this toggle widget comes from settings page 1, and so what I like to do is I like to say settings 1. And I'll just say something like that. I'll organize them all. Sometimes I put them at the bottom of this page. So settings 1 now will be angry down here because we need to say this is now called settings 1, the toggle widget. And this is called settings 1, the toggle widget. We're kind of done. Trying to decide what else to show you. I mean, this is how I do layouts. This is how I do my multiple pages. for the actual page names, I just ask each page for its name. For the page rendering, I just say, I call all my pages and I say, hey, I'm rendering. Here's the name of the page I'm rendering. Do you want to render? Feel free to render. And so I guess we could do home as well, just to show you that. Let's do cool mod MCM home render self page. Let's add a render method on home. We'll just go ahead and copy all this and we'll put it on the home page. The home page is the one that gets rendered when there's an empty string for the page name. And this is all still what we want. It'll render the left column and it'll render the right column. And we could just keep this blank. We can do whatever we want. We can say MCM header. Welcome to the home page. And I'm gonna open that up. We're in game, we click on cool mod. Welcome to the home page. Cool, we could add a toggle there if we wanted to, just to walk you through the process of setting up toggles and stuff now that we're there. What we want is just a toggle, so we'll go to the home page. We already know that it's going to need an identifier, so we'll say home page or something. Game property OID home. Could just be called toggle, whatever you want, because you prefix this with the page. Then the actual name of the widget after that can be whatever makes sense for that page. It can be really, really simple. So in the right column, we'll just make a widget called like enable mod or something. MCM add toggle option, and it'll be called enable mod or mod enabled. And you could do stuff with it. Let's say it's false by default or whatever. And we set that as what it's equal to. Now we want to handle the toggle. Now the page is going to need its own handler, right? We can do the on select. So just copy and paste that from another page. Or if you have it in your memory at this point, you can just do event on select cool mod MCM, and it's going to get the int to the option ID and events, and then we'll just say if the option ID is equal to the one that we're looking for, the home toggle, then we'll debug message box. Cool. Nice. Now if you try and run this, it won't run because you didn't tell the main MCM page that it should delegate the selection clicks to the home page, right? So whenever your page has events that it wants to handle, just remember to go to the event on the main page and hook it up so it handles them. So here I'll say cool mod home on select. I totally didn't make it global because I'm a dummy. Tot on, come on, complete. There we go. Option ID and the MCM itself. That should compile. It shouldn't on home page 25. I did something wrong. Did you see it? Oh, it's an event. Ta-da! And in game, go to cool mod and the home page. Now this little widget, we didn't hook up on highlight, which we could totally do, but you click on it and you get cool. So cool, right? Cool. So the pages we ended up with were the main MCM, and that's just the main script, and then individual pages. So if we zoom out here, this is what the home page looks like. Pretty small and simple. That's the whole home page. This is the whole settings 2 page. We don't even need these. We could get rid of them, and then in the main MCM, we could no longer pass along highlight and selection to them. So that's the whole settings 2 page. And then for the settings 1 page, it does a little bit more because it has some options that it handles. But you can already see that this, for just this one page, is 40 lines of code. And it only has like one widget or something that it's handling. So these things grow, right? So I would rather you have 10 different scripts for 10 different pages, each of which is 200 to 500 lines long, than have one. Like, I've seen MCM menus that, I'm not kidding, are over 16,000 lines of code. I think I saw like a 30,000 one. So that's what I wanted you to learn. You learned how to do left columns and right columns, and you learned my favorite pattern for doing pages. It scales well. I like it. I hope you enjoy it. It's a great way to keep your pages super duper well organized. That's it for this episode. Hang out for the next episodes. And the next episode, we're going to show you how you can put a logo of your own in the MCM page. And then we're going to show you about keyboard shortcuts. And then after that, we're looking at drop-down menus. And then I don't know what comes after that because I haven't recorded it yet. So I'll see y'all soon, and happy modding. Happy modding, everyone.